This is a documentary about the history of the telephone, narrated by Dear Duola. Have you ever wondered what a telephone looked like back in the day? Or even who the first person was to create the telephone? Believe it or not, phones have changed dramatically over the last 100 years. Alexander Graham Bell was the first person to receive a phone patent in 1876. He made his first successful call to his associate Watson from Chicago to New York. By the 1900s, there were nearly 600,000 phones in his system. That number shot up to 2.2 million phones by 1905 and 5.8 million by 1910. Bell started his own telephone company and hired switchboard operators to connect calls. Switchboard operators were very important people back in those days. They would connect callers to the person that they want to call through a telephone relay service. If you want to call someone, then you pick up your telephone and an operator asks whom you would like to call. Normally, you need a single number, and then you tell the operator the number of the person, and they will connect you. Yes, this took a lot of time, but the operators made around $12 per week and worked 10 to 12 hours per day. The reason why most operators were girls and not boys was because girls have more patience than boys do, and all you do is sit around all day answering phone calls. After a while, human operators were no longer used. The profession took a long time to go away once the phone companies changed from exchanges to automation. The switchboard operators were no longer needed, and the profession was completely stopped by 1978. The telephones in the 1920s look so different now. They were shaped like a trapezoid with a mount to hold the receiver. The mouthpiece and earpieces were connected, and you must rotate the dial clockwise and click the center to make a call. A typical rotary dial phone would cost about $20 to $30, which may not seem like a lot, but back then that was a lot of money. Making a coast-to-coast phone call a century ago was very expensive. Back in 1915, a 3-minute daytime phone call from New York City to San Francisco cost $20.70. In the 1930s and 40s, the first rotary telephone was black, but it started to come in different colors like gray, blue, yellow, and red. These phones rotated clockwise and worked on a mechanical system that used pulses to signal the number dialed. When you turned the dial and released it, a spring would cause the dial to return to its original position, and a mechanism inside the phone would interrupt the phone line several times corresponding to the dialed digit. For example, dialing 5 would interrupt the phone line 5 times. Phone calls during these years cost about 5 cents, so if you had the money to talk, then you could take all the time you wanted. It may sound odd today, but until the early 1980s, many consumers had to rent their phones from AT&T. Until then, the company had a monopoly over most of the US phone system, and in many states, AT&T would only rent phones to customers. In the early 1980s, the rental fee was $1.50 to about $5 per month, depending on the type of phone. In 1983, the government stopped them from controlling the phone system. After that, people all around the world could choose to buy a rotary dial phone for about $19.95. Also, the 80s was when the cordless phone came out, which let people walk around their house while they talked on the phone. Cordless phones became a household staple, allowing people to multitask and stay connected without having to stay in one room. Since my mom was born in the 80s, she was able to talk to me about the phones of those times. She told me about party lines where there would be 5 to 10 people or more on the phone just talking about all kinds of things at once. There was even a way to jump into other calls when you got tired of the group you were with. In addition, the cordless phone allowed you to have multiple phones connected to a single line. With the evolution of the cordless phone, the idea of the cell phone was born, thus paving a way for a new era. This new age method of mobile communication made cell phones more popular over the years, and in turn the cordless phone became more obsolete. In today's homes, the most used phone is a cordless phone. Landline phones are fighting against cell phones to stay relevant, and as you can see, telephones have dramatically evolved. Author J.L. Zagorski stated that in 2018, a government survey found that almost 55% of households only use cell phones, which is up from less than 10% in 2005. Yes, a lot has changed since then, and some would argue that it's all for the better. Even though we don't use the telephone much anymore, we can still remember the journey of how they evolved.